How are we doing, everyone? Happy Friday. I'm so pleased that this week is upon us. We've got some really cool stuff to talk about. A couple of projects that I absolutely adore. And it's going to be hard to contain that enthusiasm. So hopefully you'll tolerate and bear with me. It's really cool. Something that's from a wonderful independent author, publisher, part of the Gauntlet gaming community. And of course, a titan of a product from Monte Cook. Both of these projects are already doing really well, which kind of begs the question, why do we want to talk about it? We want to talk about both these projects just because they're awesome. I'm super excited about them. So with Devious Dungeons, Full Bedding Forest, and The Coolest Cat, my name's Phil, and welcome to the Dark Orb. And here we are. It's Friday. Thank you very much for joining. We are live, so if you're watching live, then please do keep those comments coming in. I always enjoy engaging with you and hearing what your thoughts are of the projects that we're talking about today. And in fact, a very warm welcome to Sanjuro. Great to see you. If you are excited about these, really, I know, I am really excited. I've been looking forward to this show for quite some time. If you're excited about these projects, then please, as I said, let us know in the comments. If you're enjoying the show, please hit like. Please subscribe if you're interested to see what we're going to talk about with regards to Brindlewood Bay in the future, because I think we're going to have some more content coming around that IP. Please subscribe. Please ring that bell. And yeah, next week we're going to be talking about Blade Runner for definite. This is a great couple of weeks. It's so cool. I'm trying to decide where to start, but I think we should start with Brindlewood Bay. Let's just dive right in there into the sleepy coastal town of Brindlewood Bay in well, it's in New England. So there's a lot to unpack on both of these projects, and we can start here. Normally we just dive into the trailer, and I'll do that in a bit, but I want to give you guys a little bit of a background of my experiences with this game, which are not enough. I remember when this hit Drive-Thru RPG, and it was around that time I joined the Gauntlet gaming community. Really great gaming community, role-playing. If you haven't heard of them, check them out. They've got a Patreon and a really thriving Discord community, which I am a member of, and I'll be honest, I really don't engage enough with, but that community is wonderful. And they released a few things. For example, Trophy RPG, which was hugely successful on Kickstarter about a couple of years ago, I think now. I'm desperately waiting for that to arrive, although pleased that it's not yet been shipped, because that house move might happen sometime soon. That game is a Dark Forest horror game. You've got Trophy Dark and Trophy Gold in a kind of slipcase, and they are a deviation of Power by the Apocalypse or even the Forged in the Dark rule sets. Both of those, really. Sorry guys. Yoel, great to see you. And yeah, Granny Phil, it's going to happen. Unless I'm running, in which case, well, we'll see. I never run. Where was I? Yes. So the trophy games based on Forged in the Dark, Powered by the Apocalypse. And then one of the kind of heavy hitters of the Gauntlet community, who was heavily involved with the trophy game, although not the key author of Trophy, Jason Cordova, released this game, Brindlewood Bay, which I've had on PDF for, it feels like a couple of years. It's not that long, I'm sure, but certainly it's been a long time. And in fact, if you look through this Kickstarter, and we'll go through it in a minute, there is like a primer, like they've got a directory where you can go and download some assets for Brindlewood Bay. And I believe the main PDF that they've got there, which has rules in it, is effectively the the drive-through RPG version of Brindlewood Bay. So you've got a lot of information there. It's an amazing Powered by the Apocalypse system. Let's look at that trailer, shall we? Let me just do this. There we go.
A body washed up on the beach 3 days ago. It was Albert Krause, a banker from Boston. The sheriff suspects foul play, but he hasn't been able to crack the case. Enter the Murder Mavens Mystery Book Club. When I joined the book club shortly after moving to Brindlewood Bay, I thought it was just for fun. Me and some of the local gals dissecting the latest Amanda Delacourt novel. I had no idea we'd be helping the sheriff solve real-life murder cases. Brindlewood Bay is a tabletop role-playing game about a group of elderly women solving murder mysteries in a quaint New England town. They become aware of a dark occult conspiracy connecting the murders they're investigating, and will have to face that dark conspiracy in order to save their community. The game is inspired by cozy murder mystery stories and supernatural fiction. It's Murder, She Wrote meets H.P. Lovecraft. We're raising funds to create 2 hardcover books, Brindlewood Bay and Nephews in Peril. Brindlewood Bay includes the core rules of the game and 6 mysteries. Nephews in Peril is a supplement for the game that includes expanded setting material and 10 more mysteries. I've been aboard the Krause family's yacht for several hours now trying to get to the bottom of what happened to Albert. I've learned that his wife was having an affair. His son was recently cut out of the will, and his daughter was an outrageous spender. Any one of them might have killed Albert and tossed his body overboard. I also found some rather interesting documents related to a land deal in Brindlewood Bay that went south. Something to follow up on for sure.
I'm going to
even the old man that takes care of the Krause family on their yacht seems suspicious.
And the reason for that is that I think we run the risk of potentially spoiling for anyone who's planning on playing but not running one of the mysteries that is available. This reminds me a lot of one of the mysteries. And I don't want to dig too deep into that just in case, because it may well be that you're watching this in order to see if it's a game that you want to play rather than a game you want to run. But let's talk about what Brindlewood Bay is. I think you've got a pretty good idea of it there. I'm an 80s kid. I grew up in the 80s and the 90s, basically. So I have really fond memories of things like Murder, She Wrote, where you have Angela Lansbury playing Jessica Fletcher, an author who is in Cabot Cove, which is basically one of those mysterious towns like we see in many British kind of shows as well. One of those small towns that has a mysteriously high death toll. Brindlewood Bay is kind of similar. The setup is that you are... Let me just put that there. The setup is basically that your players are grandmas, probably. Certainly little old ladies, maybe tall old ladies, like you have Dorothy from Golden Girls. But the real concept here is that all of the little old ladies have retired. They're seeking some solace and relaxation in their golden years, and every few days, maybe every day, maybe every week, I guess that's down to you, unless it's specified in the book, they all meet up at the top floor of the bookstore in Brindlewood Bay. Now, Brindlewood Bay itself is a town in New England. If you're not familiar with American kind of weather and towns and stuff, New England is kind of similar to the UK, hence the name. The winters are much colder, but the rest of the year it's kind of similar. It just, you have more snow than we do in the UK. And this town is pretty much a fishing town, where a lot of the houses have now converted to things like bed and breakfast, and the main industry is actually tourism. And these little old ladies like to get together in the top floor of their bookstore to talk about their favourite novels, which are murder mystery novels about Amanda Delacourt. And that's the primary idea. So they've all retired. Their partners have died. So maybe their husband died and then they retired to Brindlewood Bay. Maybe the other way round. Maybe actually they retired as a couple and the husband passed away from natural causes, that sort of thing. If they had children, their children are now adults and have left home. Maybe they didn't have kids, maybe they had pets, maybe they still have those pets. And what I really like from the offset of this system is that, yeah, you get some idea of what your character is, you give her a name, and maybe you think about what her occupation is, and you share some of these core details during session 0. So you would say, okay, you know, my Maven, these are the mystery Mavens, maybe murder Mavens, my brain's a little fuzzy. You know their name and you know what they did as a living, and you might have a little bit of information about what their husband did previously. And you share that at the table, and then collaboratively, everyone else at the table contributes a bit back to you. So, for example, this is a Powered by the Apocalypse game, and you have special items in Powered by the Apocalypse that can give you advantages to your rolls or help you to recover from some kind of stress mechanic. And these are considered your cozy items that you would have in your home, although you might have them at your person. So you might say, well, you know, I'm playing Doris. Her husband Albert was a gardener. My husband Albert was a gardener. In his spare time, he liked to build remote-controlled, radio-controlled airplanes. I was a secretary. I'm great at typing. I can do 10 million words per minute. And then you might go around the table and say, okay, well, what are the cozy items that Doris has got? And each person around the table gets to contribute. Well, if he was really into radio-controlled aircraft, maybe he had other radio-controlled items. So I think that she's got, from her husband, he had an old CB radio lying around, because actually he was not only into aircraft but other things. And as a typist, okay, well, actually you've got a I don't know, you've got a thing of whiteout, Tipex, some kind of correction fluid that you keep in your bag because you're so used to, as you've gotten older, your typing has become less accurate. So you're used to kind of going in and correcting on the fly. So you always have a bottle of this stuff in your purse, in your handbag. Yeah, that sort of thing. So you go around the table and you build this kind of rich idea of who each of your characters are. And then you're presented with a mystery. Someone has gone missing. Someone has died. And it is a mystery game. And it's an investigation game. It's powered by the apocalypse, as I said. So effectively, there's a lot of narrative here. And that actually makes me uncomfortable, actually. But not in a bad way. The reality for me is that I'm not very well versed with running these sorts of games. We had great success with Cult, and I loved it. And if you haven't seen our interpretation of Cult, Divinity Lost, and you're interested, then please check out on our YouTube channel. We've got that entire thing. Gallery of Souls. We had great fun recording it. It was an ordeal, but in a really good way. But actually, I don't have a lot of experience with this sort of game. And I've been thinking about this. Let me know in the comments if you agree. But I think there are kind of 3 or 4 primary types of role-playing games. You have those kind of war game derived role-playing games, which are very heavily based on the mechanics and the crunch of getting things right. And, you know, you can easily take a war game or a crunchy combat-focused game and literally throw it on a table with your squares and have it out almost like you're playing Warhammer or something like that. You also have the story-focused games that are genuinely about a story already being created. These are the kind of railroad-ish campaigns where actually as a GM, You know there's a beginning and a middle and an end, your 3 acts, or however many, 5 acts, or maybe more, as part of your scenario, which then could be part of a larger campaign. And the idea with these sorts of scenarios is that your players exist in that world. A certain number of things will definitely happen, or there will be events that occur which your players can influence, but they don't have control over. And they're very much a narrative game, and they're very much, as I said, about telling a story, but they're very heavily reliant on the GM. Then you have the sort of Powered by the Apocalypse games, which, as I said, I'm not quite so comfortable with, and I need to change that, where you are actually all, to an extent, a GM at the table, where everyone at the table has a really large contribution to the story and to the entire experience. And Brindlewood Bay is very, very much part of that, because the interesting thing is that it's through the storytelling, the collaborative storytelling, and through your dice rolls that you determine the outcome, to the extent that actually the GM doesn't know who the murderer is, or, you know, the basically who the culprit was that caused the event that you're investigating. Because as a group you find these clues, and as a group you determine whether or not these clues lead you to the correct suspect, and as a group you find out whether or not your hunches are correct. I think it requires an awful lot of trust to your party in order to make it work. So by all means, I definitely think this would be a cool game for beginners, but you need to have someone with a little bit of confidence, and everyone needs to bring something to the table. I'm going to go through the comments. Thank you everyone for commenting so far. Please keep them coming in. Let's Cthulhu, she wrote. Picture says, my wife loves BrickBox. I think she'll be all over this. I saw also that you said you thought it was in a small English town. Honestly, it is very much the same sort of thing. Doc Martin, yes. Even those cop shows like Taggart or something like that. Things like Father Dowling Investigates. You know, these are, which is American. I mean, these are all very similar. It's this idea of a person who's maybe arguably past their prime, who's desperately interested and nosy. In fact, one of the moves that you can do in this game, which is one of the key moves, and this just made me smile so much when I read it all those months ago, is one of the Powered by the Apocalypse moves you can do is the meddling move, which is the, I'm just going to get in here and mess with things just to see what happens, because I'm a interfering old lady and that's what I like to do. Oh, it's so fun. I love it. I really can't wait to actually get this to the table. Sandro says, Cabot Cove, the murder capital of TV land. Yeah, absolutely. There are a few others. Good to see you, Raggle. Hope you're well. Yeah, exactly. More of a collaborative game as everyone can contribute. And it really does need everyone to participate as a Powered by the Apocalypse. That's exactly it. That is awesome. Meddling. Exactly. My mother-in-law is wonderful, but yeah, exactly that. So instead of old ladies, you're a group of nuns stuck on an island. I think I missed something, but sure. Let's have a look at the campaign. Oh, sorry, my voice went really squeaky then. I think I'm overexcited by this project. So this was written by Jason Cordova from Gauntlet, and a few others. We'll run through the names in a bit. Brindlewood Bay is a tabletop role-playing game that combines Murder, She Wrote with H.P. Lovecraft. In it, you play a group of elderly women, members of the local Murder Mavens Mystery Book Club, who help the authorities solve murder cases in a picturesque New England town. Over the course of their investigations, they become aware of a dark occult conspiracy that connects the cases and will eventually have to face that conspiracy in order to save their community. Game is low prep, easy to play no matter your experience with tabletop role-playing games, and I'd agree with that. I've been kind of procrastinating to get this to the table, as I said earlier on, for a long time, and that's not because it looks like a particularly difficult game to play or run. That's a confidence thing on my part, and I think it's really good to push yourself out of your comfort zone once in a while. So it's something that I'm planning to run very soon. We'll see if that actually happens, and I think you guys will be the first to know if we're successful with that. As I said, there's a Kickstarter preview. That Kickstarter preview has a few different files, actually. It's not just a single PDF of, 4 pages or something. Although, I'm not going to show it today because I have this gut feeling, and I could be wrong, but I have this gut feeling that it's actually not going to do the project justice if I show it. The reason for that is that it was the layout for the original PDF. It's on DriveThruRPG, and I do recommend that you go and have a look at it, but I suspect that the printed product is going to have a much more premium feel, a much more premium look, and I don't want to denigrate that in any way. I want to actually focus on what we're seeing presented in the campaign. Right, so it's groundbreaking murder mystery game for one keeper or GM. Keeper is a term from Call of Cthulhu, that's what they call their GMs there, and that's kind of an important note to make. Up to 4 players, powered by the Apocalypse, but also uses the carved from Brindlewood mystery system, where the keeper doesn't know the solution, and that's what I was talking about earlier. So actually, as the GM, even you don't really know. You've got an idea of the threads that you've presented, and you've got an idea of the great big story arc behind the scenes, but you don't know who has perpetrated the crime that is being investigated. You just know who the suspects are. Takes inspiration from Murder, She Wrote, but also supernatural fiction and police procedural shows in the 70s, 80s and 90s. Yet all I can think about is Golden Girls. I love that show. In the game, you play a group of elderly women enjoying their retirement in the picturesque New England town of Brindlewood Bay. Their partners are deceased, their children have long flown the nest, and they find companionship in one another. The cozy feeling, cozy activities. So there is an element of what are you doing in your, effectively your downtime, right? So going back to the whole Power by the Apocalypse thing, you have downtime as well. And that's when you effectively recover things. You have opening credits montage, just like the TV shows. And there are GM moves like cutting to a commercial break, which I think is genius. This idea that if something's about to go horribly wrong and they've done a dice roll, your player has done a die roll, and it's a really bad roll, there are a few ways that they can get out of it. One way you can get out of it as a GM is to cut to a commercial. And at that point, if my memory serves me correctly, and it's been a couple of days since I read this, you effectively can give that player some hints as to the kind of commercials that you might see in midday time commercials. It's kind of terrible commercials that we all strive to stay working for as long as possible so we can avoid. But the kind of things that would be targeted at older people. So maybe it's for, I don't know, Depends or something, or vitamin tablets or something. And your player then has to try and come up with a commercial idea from my recollection. And if they do a good job, then that will positively influence the outcome when we come back from the commercial break. And it's like that kind of mini hanger that you sometimes get with commercials where they cut it just at that horrible point where something's happened, but it's not the end of the episode. I think that's really cool because you can get conditions. You can get negative conditions from, things not going your way that weren't a complete failure. The artwork is really interesting as well. It's not quite to my taste personally, but I think it's really cool. Women are members of the Murder Mavens Mystery Book Club, as we said. Passion for mystery books, especially those of the super sleuth Amanda Delacour. They've even acquired real-world detective skills from their extensive reading and discussion. They have helped the local authorities with several murder cases. Throughout the game, they'll be presented with new mysteries to solve, and these investigations are the main focus of the story. So to answer Yoel, is it a one-campaign game? Well, I think it might be unlikely that your Maven might survive, or that all of the Mavens might survive the entirety of the campaign, if I'm honest. It's down to you as a keeper to decide whether or not that happens. But Powered by the Apocalypse is quite often the case that those characters aren't necessarily designed for super long-term play. And even I have sort of noticed that through the few kind of PBTA-derived games that I've played, that in fact they get to a certain level and then it's kind of hard to kind of progress them any further. So I can imagine that you might throw several scenarios to get into a campaign with your overarching backstory, kind of your grand mystery that's being uncovered, which happens piece by piece. You get clues, void clues, I think they're called, which relates to whatever that mystery is that they're trying to uncover. And I think the intention is that they might retire from this after the conclusion of that, for whatever reason you might choose. That's my interpretation. Could be wrong. Number of innovative gameplay mechanics. First and foremost is the mystery system. They gather clues throughout the game. This is really important, but no one, not even the keeper, as we said earlier, knows what the clues mean at the start. Once the players have gathered enough clues, they'll theorize, which is an open discussion about who they think committed the murder. And it's a collaborative process. Even the GM, the keeper, gets to collaborate and kind of push and pull things in different directions. And as a result, it feels like you're solving a mystery because you're doing that whole, well, it could be this person, it could be that person. You have a few other moves, like the Gold Crown Mysteries move, where you can tap into your love of Amanda Delacour. And the Crown of the Queen, there are a couple of crowns, basically, which are basically mechanics that, like I think the example in the book is like, your Maven gets pushed off a cliff to certain death. Now, what it does say is that as a GM, you should feel empowered to make the game quite lethal, because if your player fails the roll, you can narrate them dying, or worse, but there are mechanisms such as the Crown of the Queen, and they've got a checklist, the only number of times you can do it, where you as a player can adopt the Crown of the Queen, follow the instructions that are on your character sheet, and then I think you automatically get your I need to reread it. I think you automatically then get the result as if you'd rolled to one level higher. So it's like, PBTA 7 or below is a fail, so it would then be like 8 to 10 or whatnot. So there's a mechanism for not failing a roll at a cost, and that's a really cool narrative decision. Might challenge you that, as we did all survive the PBTA, the Great American Witch. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not saying that you can't survive. What I'm saying is that I think there's a limit to, it depends on the game, a limit to how far you can take a character in PBTA before it becomes silly. Certainly the games I've played, and I've played a few, it looked like there was a kind of a finite amount that they could level up, for example, before you kind of run out of things to do that don't then just feel a little bit weird. After a while, it's not like D&D, for example, where you can just keep going and play the same character for 3 or 4 years quite easily. PBTA feels a little bit more like after a campaign, maybe 2, or after several scenarios, you get a point of diminishing returns. That's probably a better way to put it. Yeah, as I said, you have a cut to commercial mechanic where you can save your Maven skin by narrating a cheesy mid-afternoon TV commercial. I love the idea of this. As the mysteries progress, you become aware of a Hellenic death cult called the Midwives of the Fragrant Void. Hence, I was talking about void clues earlier on, and there is a dark conspiracy. As the Mavens find special void clues, they become more vulnerable to the dark forces. There's just so much. There's so much. You can also use occult moves to unlock, as it says here, new supernatural talents. Invoke the Crown of the Void, much like the Crown of the Queen, to improve your die rolls. But there's a dark cost to that, almost like a corruption. Then we get the books, right? And there's 2 main books, plus there's a special Kickstarter exclusive book with this campaign. I'm pretty excited about this because, as I said, I've got this on PDF. It's fine, it's great. You know, it's really easy to read. The layout is clean. But these books look special. It's like 150 pages or so per book. That's probably going to go up as these millions of stretch goals are unlocking, and they are. And sorry, I'm just going to scroll back up. So the first book is let me make this all a little bit bigger as well. The first book is your Brindlewood Bay core rulebook, which has everything that you need. It's got all the rules, which have been revised and expanded, which is great because there aren't a lot in that original zine size booklet. New keeper guidelines, a new section about the dark conspiracy, which is actually what I've been stumbling over as a hurdle. So, spoiler alert, I have just had some confidence issues isn't necessarily correct, but it can be sometimes really easy to be your own worst critic when it comes to writing kind of longer stories, and I think we've all exhibited that. We've all dealt with that in our own ways, and yeah, I just want to do something really cool for this. If I'm going to do a campaign and I'm going to have a void mystery at the centre of it, it's got to be cool. For one-shots, it really doesn't matter because you'll maybe get 1 void clue, so you can just leave that dangling, and so that's not an issue. But in terms of actually writing a campaign, you need to have your imagination hat on. You get 6 mysteries in the core book, and they are Dad Overboard, which is actually also part of the Kickstart, that kind of preview thing that we can see if you scroll back up on the page. The Great Brindlewood Bay Bake Off, All Hallows Scream, Jingle Bell Shock, A Murder Most Mucky, and Exit Stage Death. And then there's a bit of information about character sheet, your name, your style, your cozy activity, what you do at the end of the session, your XP, your advancements. Next book is Nephews in Peril. It's a setting book, looks really cool. There's a lot more information about other people in the city and the town, I believe. It was originally a small supplement, but they kind of expanded it a lot. Multifaceted stories, and there we go. So there are more mysteries, 6 standard mysteries and 4 sweeps week mysteries, and the sweeps week mysteries are really cool. Let's see if they're listed here. So these are the standard mysteries: are Dead Man's Hand, Lost and Dolls, or A Very Brief Tenure. Deadly Silent Auction. This just makes me think of Silent but Deadly, which is a completely different thing. Homecoming at Bonfire Cliff, Carnival Carnage, Fudge, Jury, and Executioner. But then you've also got those 4 sweeps mysteries, which I quite like the sound of. The Hex Files, Dressed to Kill, Let the Night One In, and As the Crow Dies. I just think, you know, obviously you can read more about what these actually are. There's a lot here, and these are hardback. This is what we need, you know. It's just so cool. And yeah, there's a layout of what you're seeing as a mystery. There's just enough information here in those mysteries to really give you a good flavour of what you're trying to portray at the table, without it being overly prescriptive. So it really encourages you to ask your players to contribute and help create the world. And one way they do this, and this is also something that you'll see in the Trophy RPG, if you haven't looked at that, I recommend you do, although that's much more dark horror, is paint the scene. And if you've got the right party, this is really, really powerful. So paint the scene is where you actually throw it to the table, and you say to the table, hey, I'll just make that smaller for a bit. Hey, we're in this environment. Effectively what you're saying is this environment is important, so let's build it together. The atmosphere in the old town hall is one of bustling excitement as anyone in Brindlewood Bay gathers for the tournament. What unusual objects have the organising committee used to decorate the town hall for the event? And you can go around the table and just say, Primrose, what unusual object is there here that they've used to decorate the town hall for the event? And she might say, well, the town halls, this town has got a thriving marching band. So all of the marching band instruments are all laid out on the wall. They're all hung up, and they have streamers on them. And you could go to another one. What unusual objects do you see here? Well, for some reason, they seem to have decided that they're going to have a display of all of the prize pumpkins. So there's some prize pumpkins, etc. I just think it's cool. Actually, calling your players to build that environment, and then you as the keeper and actually other players can then pull from that narrative that has been created when you get further into the scene. So there might be a kerfuffle and someone might want to grab a pumpkin and throw it at someone's head, or these sorts of things that these paints would not have been in the palette before that took place. It would have felt like you were breaking canon because the keeper, the GM, has not told you that they're there, or that you're taking liberties that in other games it's not encouraged to take. And I think that's really nice, and I'd love to see that in action. Racing, very good to see you. Thank you for joining. Brindlewood Bay could work beautifully in a best exotic... Oh my god. Yes. Best exotic marigold hotel setting. A bit like a cozy Agatha Christie or Alexander McCall Smith meeting Chaosium's Children of Fear. That's a genius idea. I can totally imagine that. And of course, yeah, Brindlewood Bay really can be anywhere. We can have it in Eastbourne, for example. But I do quite like that it's in New England. It seems appropriate, certainly. Where were we? Let's have a look. Add-ons. This is also pretty exciting. In terms of add-ons, there is the Brindlewood Bay Community Cookbook. Now, as I'm in the UK, and several of us I know that watch this show are in UK or Europe, I'm really sorry to say I suspect that all of these recipes are going to be in some funny units of measurement, and we're going to have our work cut out for us. It's going to be all pounds and ounces and cups, right? But it is a cookbook. It's got real recipes submitted by characters from the town of Brindlewood Bay. So I'm really hoping there's going to be like Granny's apple cake and that sort of stuff. But more than that, it's actually like a solo adventure book. Let me see what it says here. The book is a solo mystery game. Each page has notes from a murder maven written in the margins, and you'll use these notes as clues to solve a cold case murder that happened in the town many years ago. I think that's great. We wanted to create something special for the campaign, something that captured the cozy, creepy atmosphere of Brindlewood Bay, still has that connection to gaming. And I think that, yeah, there's the cover. Yeah, look at this. Let's see if I can make that any more easy for us to see. Certainly can't if I do that. Technology issues. No, it's not going to let me zoom in very easily. I tried, folks. What if I open image, new tab. Boom, there we go. So you can see here, why do I keep thinking of sea monsters? She found all the tools but didn't tell anyone. Why? Where was she June the 3rd? Hey, that's my birthday. Where was she on my birthday? Yeah. It's just great. I like this idea a lot. But I do not like the sound of peanut butter and jelly scones. Nah. That's a flavour profile I'm never going to ever get. What do you think in the comments? PB&J scones, is that something that you would be looking forward to? I think I'd try them. But I'm not 100% sold. Right, let's go back. So, worth saying, this campaign has done amazingly well. We are at a $10,000 goal to get this printed, and they've hit $173,000. It's incredible. I'm really, really pleased for Jason, for the entire team behind this. I knew it was going to be popular. I'm actually back at number 11, and I'm really proud of that. Not because it's 11. I don't really have any kind of numerical reason for being proud. I'm really pleased that I managed to get in there early for, I like knowing that I've helped to fund this. Let's put it that way. 31 days to go. It's soaring, and we'll have a look at the stretch goals, which are here just beneath that screenshot. But yeah, what do you guys think? What do you think so far? Let me know in the comments. All these stretch goals, ribbon bookmarks, spot UV to the main books, full colour map of the town, mystery, 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 more art, the sweep mystery, drifting down scream, new Maven moves, bed and breakfast and beyond, a 2-player version of Brindlewood Bay with the releases digital download. Man, I wish that was a printed download, but I totally get it. So 175 is the next one. Advanced sendings and servitors, adding a chapter that dives deep into powers. That'll be cool. 200, Children of Persephone. Now those are the cultists that are trying to do something that's your void mystery. So a chapter about them, I think, would be very useful. It's certainly something I personally would appreciate a lot. So damn it, help me get there so that I can be a little bit lazier. The pledge tiers are very reasonable in my mind. $20 for both PDFs. That's a very fair price. It's not so cheap that it devalues the product, which we talk about very frequently. It really annoys me when the PDF is just so low that it kind of makes the product feel like the artists don't know how much it's worth. Maybe that's something that right now, obviously, when we're not all financially comfortable, and I get it from that perspective. Hardship pledges are great, but for people who can afford it, and a lot of people in gaming have got some spendable income, I do think that artists need to be paid for their work. And the PDF and the hardcover, there's surprisingly little difference in the overall cost to get those two, to backers, I think, in that the artwork of the PDF, the layout and the writing is actually, I believe, quite a heavy lift. It's quite a lot of the cost. Then you've got the Brindlewood Bay pledge tier. You get the hardcover of Brindlewood Bay, $35. Then you get both books for $65. You get both books and the cookbook for $90. So that's what we lovingly call. Let's see if anyone says in the comments what we call that level there. But I have, that's not something I can highlight. But yeah, there is a term for getting the pledge level that has everything in, and I get reminded of it in every single Kickstarter weekend. That said, that's what I would get personally. We all know it. Shipping, I mean, it's hard to guess really. $30 shipping. I don't even want to pretend that we know if that's going to be accurate, because everything is so weird with shipping right now. I've had friends who have just paid shipping for, in fact, the Marvel Zombicide, and just for the base level, they're paying like almost as much as the original game. And I'm not saying they're being ripped off. It's just that shipping is weird right now. We've seen on things like Facebook people who got the all-in and are paying $300 shipping, plus taxes, plus importation duties and stuff. See, the fill level. Apparently that's the thing. I didn't coin it. Everyone else did. That is Brindlewood Bay, my friends. I think it's awesome. I really do like it a lot. I've been excited about this for a long time. Hopeful that we can get some more information about that coming to the Dark Orb very soon. Maybe we'll get an actual play of it. I don't want to promise it, but we'll do what we can. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. Have you already backed it? Have you been waiting for it? I know I was. Have you an idea of what kind of adventures you want to run in it? Let me just take a drink, and then we'll go and we'll talk about the second game. That's better. Is it shipping or shipping and taxes? I find it was more... Yeah, it was the taxes. Previously, I agree with you. This time around, I saw... In fact, I'll share it on the Discord if I can find it again. But yeah, for that product, the shipping was about £200, $200, I think. And then the taxes were separately itemized. It was painful to look at. I don't think it helps that right now the dollar to pound is actually... The pound is very low against the dollar. So we're at like 120 at the moment. Go back 3 or 4 months and we were at nearly 140. So that's not going to help at all. But it's also just everything is, meh, you know. You didn't get Galactus? Man, I would have been tempted, but I've got nowhere to put it. I didn't actually back it. It looks great and I'd love to play it, but I didn't back it. We're talking about the Zombicide Marvel thing. I hope you're having fun. Let me know if you are. Hit that like button. Right. Let's talk about Old Gods of Appalachia. I'm kind of lost for words on this one. I didn't think I was going to be interested in it. For no specific reason, actually. Maybe because I was thinking, well, I've got Symbaroum, I've got Shadows of Esteren. Do I need more? I have listened to the Old Gods of Appalachia podcast, and not in entirety, probably the first half of the first season, and it's very good. I understand that it gets better and better as you listen to more of it, and I need to do that. So bear in mind that I don't have an emotional tie to the intellectual property. Let's check which of these two is Phil's favourite, Brindlewood Bay or Old Gods. Spoiler alert, this show's going to overrun. It really is. Normally we do this show for an hour. I can imagine it's going to be more like 90 minutes. I'm sorry. There was like, oh yes. So I don't have an emotional tie to Old Gods of Appalachia. I kind of took a step back, thinking about the tagline for our show, which is Devious Dungeons, Foreboding Forests, and the Coolest Cats, right? And yeah, Symbaroum is my favourite game world. There is no competition for me right now in terms of where I like to explore, and it's the only long-running campaign I've got right now. I started looking into it. Listened to a few of the episodes of the podcast. A few friends told me I really need to check it out. And of course, it is by Monte Cook. Now, I've never played anything Cypher System. And I've not played a lot of anything else that Monte Cook have done. We've played a bit of Invisible Sun. We own Invisible Sun. But a friend of ours actually ran a few sessions of that before geography got in the way. And it's great. And the reality is that Monte Cook, they make beautiful, beautiful games. Like the tactile nature of them, the production quality is out of this world. Then I decided to listen to my friends, some of you are watching, and actually pay some attention. And God, I hate you. I really do. Not really. Let's have a look at the trailer, shall we? Maybe not all of it.
The woods are thick here. A tangle of ancient trunks and limbs that groan and sway like lungs breathing their last desperate gasps. But these trees, moss-etched and rife with the hungry mouths of 1,000 more hungry insects, these broken fingers grasping for the moon-hung sky. These trees are not what you or I would even understand as being alive. See, that would be far too simple. This cursed clutch of branch and shadow is something else entirely, something born of blood and betrayal, nurtured with petty thoughts and poison promises. You breathe, and they breathe. And through them, beneath them, all around them, and therefore you, something else emerges. From all the tales you were told and all the books you read and all the ones who said, don't go, you expected darkness. And she is light. Ball lightning come to earth, tendrils touching each tree like a long-lost lover arrived home at last, the earth beneath her cracking deep as it gives itself up to her. Forward she moves. Or maybe she moves you. And when she stops, or you stop, or the world stops, there are no woods, no grove, nor ground. There is only her and you, and what comes next. Dazzled, your mind says mother. Dazzled, your mind says beloved. Your mind says run and retreat, and know this is what you have come for. She is who you have come for. She lifts her blinding head, one eye black and deep as a coal mine, and she says, ask. What do you do, family?
I reach into my bag and I pull out the offering that we made. My hands are shaking and I can't see, but I hold it up and I start reciting the passage that we memorized. I'm trying to get everyone else to join me so she'll take our offering. I'm trained in social interactions and I'm using my ability to deal with the devils to be even more persuasive. It gives me a free level of effort.
So you're decreasing the difficulty by 2, and I'll give you an asset on the offering for a total of 3. Make a roll to see if you succeed.
I rolled a 12.
You feel a pressure under your skin, a fierce roiling of energy that brings your hair to stand and makes your eyes feel like all the moisture has been cried from them. One heartbeat and you're standing there in the burning light, holding the offering, and the next, it's gone from your hands. Taken. You think this means it's been accepted, but she says nothing, merely watches and waits.
There's more there, obviously, and we could keep watching. But you're perfectly capable of looking at the link yourself. The link's down below, along with the link to our Discord. So if you've not joined our Discord, please come and talk to us. You know, it's open. You know, we're a friendly bunch. Yeah. So I really dig that sort of narrative darkness. There's so much mystery and tension there, and I really like that. I like that a lot. The thing that they just dramatized is actually this bit of text, just this first infographic here, and I think it's really good as a way of enabling you to also have that dialogue interchange in your own head, because we all read these things differently. And I mean, I'm never going to obviously get that sort of accent going on, despite how many times I seem to slip into other dialects, because I work with such an international bunch and I pick terrible versions of accents up very easily. But I think at the table we'd probably give that a good go, right? Maybe not when anyone's watching. We do that bad enough with some of our other actual plays. But I think it's great. And the voice actors that you had there, that was Steve Shell. So, and I presume that was probably also Cam. I'm sorry, Cam, I've forgotten your surname. Cam Collins, providing that narrative. And that gives you an idea of the quality that you have in the podcast, of which this is derived. So that podcast is like an anthology of folk horror tales. I imagine that a lot of it is fairly original, but I know that the people who wrote it, Stephen, I presume Cam included, grew up in Appalachia, grew up in the area, so there's a lot of original folk tales that maybe have been extended and adapted. And that reminds me a little bit of what we like about things like Vessen, the Free League game, Vessen, sorry, I need another drink, where Johan Egerkrans basically took the time to look into folk legends and tales and myths and create an art book around it, which then obviously became a role-playing game, where I don't want to say there's an element of truth to the stories, because I'm not a spiritual person in that sense, but certainly for those who are, indeed there is an element of truth. We make our own reality to an extent. More importantly, there's an element of emotional tactility. You can kind of empathize with what's happening through that kind of folk element. These stories that are being told are fantastical, but they're relatable, because we've probably all heard, even in the UK, we've got our own folk stories. We've got the Black Shuck, we've got Will-o'-the-Wisp, you know, these things which are interchanged to an extent with other cultures. And I can say that even with these tales from Appalachia, which are all about mining and milling and things that go bump in the night, and the horrors in the woods, not the forest, in the woods, but they're not a million miles away from the sort of tales that we would have heard in the UK. And as Wraithing says, it's an amazing cameo video. Definitely makes you want in. I wanted to play the whole thing, but it was like 5 minutes, and I was a bit kind of concerned about time. This is what you have come for. Old Gods of Appalachia is a role-playing game of the green, the dark, and things even more ancient, in which player characters protect what's important and try to know the unknowable. It is set in the alternate Appalachia of the Old Gods of Appalachia podcast, a captivating eldritch horror anthology created by Steve Shell and Cam Collins, winner of the 2021 Discover Pod's Best Overall Podcast and Best Audio Drama or Fiction Podcast Awards. Standalone tabletop RPG, driven by the Cypher system. Now, as I said earlier on, I've actually not played anything Cypher system. I've played Invisible Sun, which certainly has some elements that are similar, but I haven't played Cypher system, so I can't give you a lot of detail about that. I just can't. It's not something that I have enough knowledge of. But we do know that it's a very good system. It's very popular. And it works. You know, Numenera, for example, and I've totally forgotten the name of the other game that was on the tip of my tongue. But there's more than one game that uses it. So we know it's a great system. I do recall that the idea is that the GM sets a target based on difficulty between 1 and 10. And then I think that can be influenced by things that are in the player's control. So for example, she's saying, well, I'm good at negotiation and I've got this extra thing here, an extra ability that makes me even better at this kind of convincing role. And then GM says, okay, and you've also got a present that you've got a gift you're presenting and offering, so we'll take 3 off the target number, but I'm not going to take 3 off the difficulty, but you don't know what the difficulty is. And then I think that difficulty is then multiplied by 3, and that gives you your target number that you have to hit with a d20. So it doesn't sound like a very easy system, but at the same time, there are other ways that you can influence the roll, and you've got, you know, currency, in-game currencies that you can spend to change the outcome. This game is smashing through the stretch goals, as we said already. For, let's see, we've got the poster map, creatures, adventures, art plates, campaign journals. They look really cool. Poster maps, more bookmarks, audio for the game table. That's super important because the background audio in the podcast is freaking awesome. I'm never going to be able to do that without help. That sort of level of extra what's the word I'm looking for? Ambience, I guess. That's not the word I'm looking for at all, but it will do. The ambience that can be provided if you've got good audio and if you're able to change it on the fly, which is sometimes a challenge when you're GMing, it can contribute a lot. Resource decks, prop crafting kit. That's a digital prop crafting kit, so that's things like typefaces and graphics and business cards and that sort of stuff. And then at $1.5 million, and let's just remind ourselves where we're at now, 1.3, I think. No, 1. Oh, wow. So $30,000 off. It's a player's guide, which I think is pretty cool. So basically the player's guide is a soft cover booklet that's got like the player-facing rule set. And certainly if you're pledging at what everyone's going to call the fill level, the Delver in the Dark, I think you get like 5 copies of the player's guide. Doesn't say here, but I think I read somewhere there that you basically get enough for your entire table. Scroll down for details, the unique, beautiful items. There's a primer, and I'll show you the primer in a bit. It's gorgeous, and it certainly sets the tone for what you can expect from Monte Cook. They always do beautiful things. And that's kind of the challenge if you're trying to save money, because if you actually start adding up all the different add-ons that are available in this campaign, and you try and be crafty and just do it separately, they've priced this very, very cleverly so that you get to a point where, like, say you just want to get a copy of the book and 2 or 3 or 4 of the add-on items, you quite quickly get to a point that is just at that level where you may as well pay the extra $5, $10, $20 to get an awful lot more, because the individual items are quite expensive. Yeah, primer. We'll have a look at that in a second. The game. The things that once slumbered in the hills and hollows beneath the earth and beyond the eye have begun to wake. They stir and breathe. They see you and know your innermost heart, those long dark tunnels of pain and sorrow and secrets. They call to you in voices deep and dark, voices ancient and unknowable, voices full of pain and promises, and no way to tell between the two. Come to us, those voices say. We have only just begun. I love it. I love the writing, it's great. It's like the complete opposite of Brindlewood Bay, which also I was super excited about. We said, Cypher system. Apparently that's fast-paced gameplay. That's important to me. I'm kind of sick of really crunchy games. I play them less and less often now. There are some crunchy games out there where that are supposed to be really quick and pulpy and fun. Savage Worlds, I'm kind of looking at you. Where everything is fine until you get to a combat, and then suddenly it just feels like it takes forever, even though the mechanics on paper are super slick. D&D, kind of similar, 5th edition. A lot of the time it's quick, but then something happens and it can just slow to a complete halt. Cypher system characters are built from the concept up. There's something about those in the primer, we'll have a look in a bit. Mechanical basis for skills, abilities and stats, narrative engagement, rewarding player-driven subplots, and giving players resources to bear on the tasks and situations that they most want to succeed at. Big fan of that. And then you've got these additional resources that you get as well. The game aids and the accessories, particularly in those higher pledge levels, it just looks beautiful. Really does. So look, their shipping is insane. I don't know why, but it's way out of whack compared to any others. Which project are you referring to? This one, or are we going back to things we were talking about earlier? Let's have a look in a bit. I haven't seen the shipping yet on this project. So the limited deluxe edition, vegan leather. I'm not a vegan, and I do agree that the unnecessary treatment, you know, kind of poor treatment of animals is a horrible thing. But I kind of feel like vegan leather is not a good thing either, because, I mean, that's like a fossil, I presume, like a non-sustainable product, right? It's a fossil fuel derived product. I would have thought that a sustainable leather product, in the grand scheme of things, is possibly, if that product exists anyway, might be a better move ecologically, because that leather already exists due to food farming. I don't know, I'm not an expert. I just kind of feel like that vegan leather maybe is not actually as ecological as we thought it was, or that we portray it to be. So it's a tricky one for me, but it's still going to be gorgeous, and the limited deluxe edition is what I would get. I'm just not entirely sure ethically that it's necessarily the best option out there. Probably would have been better with like a canvas or something. In fact, yeah, like a cottony canvas, like a buckram leather might, a buckram cloth might be a little bit less harmful, maybe, than plastic. Right. Anyway, you've got a dust jacket, and it's gilded, full stamped, debossed. It's going to look beautiful. That limited deluxe edition, it's going to be second to none. The dice tray and the dice. These dice are really expensive. If you get them as an add-on, they're like $55. If you get them as part of the campaign, they seem to cost a lot less. They are large. There's only 4 of them. There's a D6, a D20, a D... looks like a D10? 2 D10, so you can do percentile. Yeah, it says it right there. Complemented by a custom velvet-lined leather-backed folding dice tray. Is it real leather or is it vegan leather? A tin. You can put stuff in it. It's tinny. Resource deck. So there are a few decks, actually. There's a resource deck. I think there's an XP deck as well. Campaign journals, which you give to your players, and then they can scribble down what they're doing in the game. Yeah, XP deck, there you go. GM screen, character portfolios. 24-page character portfolios do the job of a character sheet, but also give you room for notes, sketches and details, keeping a campaign journal, making maps and location notes, keeping track of NPCs, fleshing out your character's backstory. If you're going to play this game in person, I think this is going to add a lot of flavour to the game. Scripts. So, scripts are interesting. I think we had something similar in industry here. It's definitely a mining thing, though. It's the idea that you work for your mining company, and they don't actually pay you cash. They pay you, and I think you saw this also even with some of the car manufacturers and things like that when they were first starting out. I think Ford even did something like this. I could be wrong, but yeah, the idea that you don't actually get paid the cash, the currency that is actually in your country, so dollars or pounds or whatever, but you're paid with tokens that have a monetary value, but obviously nowhere accepts them except the stores in the town where you live. So you have to go to the mining and storing town. They're the only place that will accept your money, and that really controls your workers, because they cannot afford to leave. If you're not paid real money, you can never leave the you can never leave your employer, because you have no capital to move elsewhere, start afresh. You'd need some lucky break from a family member, a friend, a new loved one who's outside of this community in order to actually make that happen. Yeah, you get a whole load of these as an add-on. I think it's a really cool add-on, to be honest with you. Pocket Railroad Guide. I think this was one of the stretch goals. Everyday form of transportation in alternate Appalachia. Practical game aid with information about train routes and times. An immersive prop that transports their imaginations into the alternate Appalachia. And PDFs. Now, Monte Cook are one of those companies that charge a lot for PDFs once you get out of the Kickstarter. If you are interested in this game, if you are genuinely interested and you're thinking about it and you want to go at the PDF level, honestly, I would suggest checking out the cost of some of the other PDFs on the Monte Cook web store. I don't think they're overpriced, but they're not cheap. You're not looking at $5, $10 for a PDF. I think you might do better if you can afford it to back it here in this campaign, unless you're prepared to wait for it to go on sale, which could be a year after it hits retail. So if you're genuinely interested and you don't want to go the print level, you can't afford the print level, unless you're prepared for a sale, unless you're prepared for a humble bundle or a bundle of holding, you're probably not going to see a better price than this for a while. So do consider that. Oh, these are the pledge levels, right? So family, the standard core book, plus the PDF. Again, PDF for free. They're valuing the PDF at $25. So, you know, if you're wanting to get the book and the PDF, you're kind of better off getting it here rather than getting it through retail, unless they are taking part in Bits and Mortar. I'm not sure that Monte Cook does. If anyone knows in the comments, please let us know. Let's have a look. Truekin. Deluxe limited edition version, which is beautiful, plus PDF, again, for free. So by that virtue, they're charging you $100 for the book. It's a lot of money for a limited edition, but it's limited edition, small-ish print run. It's not going to be as limited as some other games that have been out in the last few years, because this is really, really hugely popular. So do not consider this an investment. It probably isn't one. But if you're a collector and you want to have that item for yourself, then get it while you can, because the likelihood is that maybe you'll be able to get it the aftermarket through eBay or something, and maybe it'll be more expensive. Probably will be more expensive short term. Longer term, I can imagine that price will drop, because a lot of people are buying this. It's not going to be a super rare commodity, and it's probably going to dip for quite a while before it goes back up again. I can't promise that. I'm not a financial advisor, but that's kind of my gut feeling. Buy it for you. Don't buy it to invest. The Walker of the Green's a really interesting pledge level, and I'm going to go full screen for this so that you can kind of see what we're looking at. A full poke's worth, there we go, of gaming goods for a complete and wondrous RPG experience, including the Deluxe Limited Edition and the Standard Edition, plus the campaign journal, 5 character portfolios. Clearly I got the campaign journal and the portfolios the wrong way around. I think you only get one of those, and the portfolios you get 5 of, obviously. The GM screen, the Old Gods Speak audio files, resource deck, XP deck, and a prop crafting kit for $190. And Delver Into the Dark is basically the same thing, but you also get the dice tray, the lock tin, barrow and lock tin, the railroad guide, and there was something else. Both versions of the book. Oh yeah, it's signed. The limited edition version is signed. And then if you're a shop, then you've got a good deal there. There's a nice little infographic here. In fact, let's see if I can just embiggen that, because I think it is worth seeing. So really, if you are a collector, you're looking at one of these 3 options, and you can see they've done quite a good job of making it quite clear what extra you're getting. So for example, if you're really not interested in autographs, or in the tin and the dice tray and the railroad guide, or if you're only interested in one of these items, you can save a ton, literally, by going for Walker of the Green and then adding that one item. But it doesn't always break even too well. Remember I said that those dice were quite expensive. So for example, just wait for this to load back up again. That was the Walker in the Green level, right? So true key in. Walker of the Green, $190. And then the Delver in the Dark is $265. So a little bit of simple maths. That's $75 is the difference there, right? Now if we look at the price of the add-ons, which I believe is further down here. Sorry for the sound of the stuff here. The dice alone are $55. The dice tray is $20. If you decided you wanted to just get that walk with the green level, but actually you kind of want the dice and the dice tray, but you don't really fancy the tin, you're not that interested in that railroad guide, but you want the dice and the dice tray. Getting the dice and the dice tray is $75, which actually pushes you over the level of the Delver in the Dark by $10. Yeah, if my brain is working correctly. So it actually doesn't break terribly even there. 65. Oh no, sorry. It's 190 to 265. So just going to double check that. Yeah, 190, so that's $75. Your dice and your dice tray is also $75. So then all that happens is you pay the same amount, but you don't get the barrow unlocked in, you don't get the railway guide, and no one signs your book. So at that point, you're going to think, oh, well, screw it. Even if you only wanted the dice and you didn't want any of the other stuff, for an extra $20, you can get all that other stuff. They've done a very clever job here. And kudos to whoever it is in their product team and their marketing team who's priced it. Because that's really, I want to say it's sneaky, but it's probably not actually sneaky. They've just really thought about it and probably thought about the logistics of it all. And again, you know, a lot of these prices is going to be about breaking even. The team is amazing. Shanna Jermaine, who has done a lot of really cool stuff, none of which I've played. Sorry. Cam Collins and Steve Shell, who are from Old Gods. Tammy Webb Ryan, native of Wise County. So she's local to the area, and also first non-founder to join the MCG team, Monte Cook Games. She's been in the industry for a long time. Monte Cook, obviously, who's the famous person at Monte Cook Games. If you haven't heard of him, then if you haven't heard of him and you've heard of Monte Cook Games, then something is going horribly wrong. Shipping. Okay, international shipping. We don't know. Basically, they don't know yet, so not going to pretend that they do. I think that's probably fair. They're going to be filled by the shipping centre in the UK. I would expect that's probably going to be ShipQuest or someone similar. Risks and challenges, blah. You know what you're looking at here. What do you think? Let's catch up. Yes, exactly. Vegan leather is effectively a plastic. So how the hell is that more sustainable? If we take the ethical thing of treatment of animals out of it, that's my kind of concern. And I'm trying really hard not to offend anyone with this because I don't want to argue about it. I just think it's an interesting conversation. So certainly something that we could talk about in Discord. But at the same time, I'm not trying to disrespect anyone's personal beliefs. And this is completely taking emotion out of the equation. I'm concerned that maybe as a fossil fuel, it's probably not the best choice either. Obviously, I'm wearing a leather hat. This is not vegan leather. So that's kind of me putting my heart on my sleeve in terms of, you know, kind of personal clothing style. But that's irrelevant. You know, if I thought vegan leather was a better alternative, then I probably wouldn't have an issue. Yes, Pitola Snow. Pito says, I back Numenera and Tolus, but just in general, their web store. Yeah, I've seen that as well. Actually, when you're getting stuff through their web store, it's very expensive. I would like to think that maybe if you're buying something through the Kickstarter, though, actually they're gonna effectively drop ship it to an extent. So I can imagine that for everyone that's in the EU, it will go to a central EU fulfillment center, which is already part paid for. So that major bit of shipping bulk has already been done, and therefore the price should come down because it's actually only that little extra bit that you have to deal with for the most part. But I guess we won't know until we get to that point in the campaign. Let's have a look. I owe my soul to the company store. Yeah, exactly. The tune 16 tons is about owing money to the mining company store thanks to mining scripts. Exactly. I have Savage Worlds Holler. in Shipping Waiting Room, very different art, but essentially an alt Appalachian horror setting, and it'll play so much better in my accent. I take it you don't have the same accent as me then, because I would make a mess of it. I very nearly bought Holler, but I've played Savage Worlds quite a lot. I've ran Deadlands Noir for like 7 or 8 months, loved it, but didn't really enjoy it when things got hot. Then also Deadlands Wild West for quite a few months. I didn't run that. I was a player, and yeah, as a player it felt the same. So there must be ways to speed up things like combat. I don't know, I just don't love it, even though I really want to, and I've spent quite a lot on it. I've got the Savage Worlds box set with all the player aids, and to be fair, we weren't playing it in person. We were playing it remotely because pandemic. So maybe that has something to do with it, and maybe that improves things. But it didn't quite work for us yet. The other game setting that's very similar, if you know Dungeon Crawl Classics, is you've got the Change Coffin, which is basically is a setting, and it's also in Appalachia. So there's a whole load of scenarios that are kind of very badly not at all joined together. We're about halfway through, I think, or a quarter of the way through that, playing that in person very, very slowly, like once a month, and that's great as well. So there's certainly a lot of cool stuff happening with Appalachian folk derived role-playing games right now. Like I said, I didn't back Holler. This appeals to me an awful lot more, and certainly is in keeping with our theme on the show. Thoroughly recommend checking out the podcast. It's free, although if you want to back them as a patron, which I have not yet done, but it's not impossible that it will happen, you can get it ad-free. There's some really annoying ads at the beginning, particularly if you're listening on something like the Apple Podcast app. I could imagine it's the same no matter where you listen to it, unless you're doing it through Patreon, and they have, either through Patreon itself, or through, maybe they give you a private link, I don't know. Then you can get rid of those ads that make up sort of 3-4 minutes of a 20-minute show. It's probably worth it if you dig it as much as I have. Check it out. I think it's really cool. And speaking of Patreon, we have a Patreon. If you like what we're doing, then the link is down below. Consider subscribing if you would. It's completely optional. Feel free to do that if you want. Or just come and talk to us on Discord. As I said before, our Discord is open, and the link also is below. I think that's us done in terms of this show. However, at 9:30, we will, if patrons are joining us, and we'll see. If patrons are joining us, then we will be on Twitch again in just under 10 minutes. So if you're watching on YouTube, then just go here. And if we're able to, we will have a little party. So we have a Friday night party, which normally is at 9 o'clock. We're running a little bit over, where we just get together and talk about geek stuff. So there have been films that have come out recently, whether or not we've received any things in the post from Kickstarters or other related items. I don't know who's going to be joining us, so we'll find out. Keep your eye on our stream, 9:30 UK time, which will be 10:30 Sweden time, and some other time. My brain is gone. 4:30? Yeah, 4:30 Eastern Daylight Time, if you're watching live. So come on over to our Friday night party and bring a beer. I'm gonna get this that I've been drinking has no alcohol in it. This is just a fruit drink, so I might trade that out for something a little bit more exciting, and hopefully see you there. In the meantime, I hope you've enjoyed. If you have, please hit like, please subscribe, ring the bell for notifications if you're watching on YouTube. We'll be back next week to talk about Blade Runner. I can't wait to talk about the Blade Runner RPG. Hopefully we'll be back before then. We've got a couple of other things lined up that may or may not come to fruition over the next week. So hopefully we'll see you before then. If not, see you in 10 minutes. If not, I hope your dice rolls are way better than mine. Thank you for joining. Big love to you all. Take care, everyone. Bye.